All right, everybody. Thanks for sticking around and joining us on this very punchy day. We had quite the table takes, but my very excitable friend Javion is joining us from Mox Boarding House this week. Do you want to talk about yourself and Mox Boarding House at all?
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Derek.
Thank you for coming back, even though I hear that you're a dog person.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody has their preferences, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do.
All right, fine. Hi, my name is Javion. I've been playing board games for like 5 or 6 years, and I work at Mox Boarding House, which is a board game store, cafe, and online website for Magic the Gathering cards. Mm-hmm. So
Under Card Kingdom.
Under Card Kingdom, yeah. So we have 2 locations, one in Ballard, one in Bellevue, and another one in Portland that hasn't really finished opening yet. We're
Any
open
day
for
now.
next year.
Anytime soon.
Open for January, maybe February. But yeah, Mox Boarding House is really just this big board game store, but it's also a board game cafe. Fun place to play Magic the Gathering tournaments or just play board games. We have a big, huge library for free gaming. So if you want to like try something out before you buy it, it's really fun to come by and just hang out with people.
Mm-hmm. Great. So we had a vote for what game we were going to start off with.
Yep.
And it's my understanding that Encore and Fantastic Factories were tied. And you decided to cast the deciding vote for Fantastic Factories because
it has dice in it.
For a very Javion reason.
It has so many dice. This is my personal copy I brought for you
People
guys
who are
today.
joining us new, Javion is obsessed with dice.
I love dice.
So if your game has dice, he will love it.
I sleeved all my cards already.
You're one of those people.
This is
your personal copy?
A really, really fun game. Yes, this is my
Wow.
personal copy.
Thank you for bringing it out and sharing it
You're
with
very
us.
welcome. I recommend you sleeve your cards if you buy this game too,
Why is
because
that?
they're very nice cards, but they're also
Okay.
very thick and not very fun to shuffle.
That's a shame.
But
Hey, look, dice.
with sleeves, it makes it a lot easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is this game?
So this game, Fantastic Factories, is an engine building game
Okay.
of dice placement and resource management.
An engine building game about creating pollution and destroying the environment?
Actually,
Great.
no. You get to make cool things like robots and golems and monoliths.
Are you saying that monoliths don't create pollution?
No, absolutely
Are you
not.
part of the monolith lobby? Big
no.
Monolith has you?
Monoliths are just structures that look nice. That's all.
what Big Monolith wants you to think.
My monoliths are created from recyclable materials.
Oh, that's good. So, looks like we have really high quality player boards.
Yes. Yeah. So
I'm gonna predict. Ready? Mm-hmm. You put dice in these.
that's correct.
Wow.
Yeah,
Look
and
at
they all
me.
do different things when you
I
put the
have
dice
played
in.
a game before.
And you get bonuses when you put dice of the same number in certain slots. Those are your headquarters. Everybody starts with a headquarters. And that's what you're going to be using to gain resources, valuable resources
Oh boy.
that you'll need
My building fell over.
to build things like the cryo lab or a temp agency for your factory.
I don't know if I want to go to a cryo lab that uses a temp agency for staffing purposes.
I was a temp once.
At a cryo lab?
No.
Temping is totally appropriate for a lot of professions. Cryo lab is not one I would pick.
Well, I don't know. Everybody needs an assistant, right? So maybe the temp agency just...
Yeah, but I want them to stick around. Anyway.
Well, temp to hire is a thing. Anyway, yeah, so for each of these blueprint cards, you're going to get points if you build them. Some of them are more useful than others, which means they're going to be worth less points, but some of them are less useful and more difficult to activate, and those are going to be giving you more points at the end of the game. So everybody wants to build as many blueprint cards as you can.
Okay.
Because those blueprint cards are going to be useful for manipulating your dice.
Well, like the blueprint cards are how you're building your engine. Like
Exactly.
That's the parts of your engine.
Exactly. Yeah. You start with your headquarters, which is like 3 parts, but then you add more and more the more blueprints you create. But the blueprints are useful for getting points, but they're also useful for getting more dice or manipulating your dice, using your dice on top of the cards instead of in the headquarters, so you can get more benefits off of them, like more cards or more
So
resources.
it's increase efficiency, more options.
Yes, efficiency is the the fulcrum of this game.
Great.
Is trying to be as efficient as possible, because every game that I've played has come down to just about like 2 or 3 points difference, which is crazy for a game that uses dice.
Yeah, so this is not just roll higher or roll
No,
better. It
no.
is figure out where to allocate the the opportunities the dice have given you.
Right.
Okay.
There's always somewhere you can place your dice, and a lot of times you're hoping for the right results. There are no rerolls unless you have special blueprints created that let you do that kind of thing. And then there's the market, which you're going to be like selecting cards from at a time. But you're also going to be sharing that market with other opponents and these contractors that you can hire that will give you bonuses for the most part. And a lot of times they'll offer bonuses to other people as well. So you have to trade in cards to get temporary bonuses or just collect more
What's the
blueprint
difference
cards.
between the blueprint and the contractor?
So the
Are, like, one
contractors-
temporary or one time? Or?
Yeah, so the contractors are temporary.
Got it.
You have to toss away a card just to use it.
Got it,
Because
okay.
the bonuses are like, oh, draw 3 more cards, or gain 5 energy, or things like that.
Cool.
Whereas the blueprint cards, you're collecting them and then tossing them away again.
So
to get
how
blueprint
quickly
cards
does
out.
this engine ramp up? Because there's definitely like engine builders that like terraforming Mars is kind of an engine builder, but
Yeah.
it goes real slow and then
Yeah.
kind of ramps up at the end.
This
What's the pace of this one?
I would say it's kind of on the slower side.
So, all
you
right.
get a little bit of resources at a time. Like when you're gaining metal, it's like 1 or 2 at a time.
Okay.
But energy you can get in like huge abundance. You can get maybe 3, 4, or even 7 at a time when you're placing down dice in the generate resources section
Mm-hmm.
in your headquarters. However, building cards costs you not only the resources, but also another card from your hand.
Okay.
So you're gonna need to spend a lot of dice getting cards, then tossing those cards away to put the blueprints down.
Okay.
So it ends up being a little bit of a slower ramp until you get to the very end where you're using 4 dice, maybe you get, maybe you toss away a metal to get an extra die, and then you're placing those dice on areas that maybe let you get more dice. And
I'm just
the
a little
combos
surprised.
happen later on.
The art would have made me expect that it was a faster playing ramp up. So how long should a whole game last?
Actually, it's a pretty quick game. Once somebody gets 10 blueprint cards out, or if you get 12 of these goods points out, then you get 1 more round and the game's over.
Okay.
And because everybody's playing simultaneously, which means I'm rolling my dice and you're rolling your dice at the same time.
Sure.
I'm placing my dice and using my blueprint cards. You're doing that while I'm doing that.
Okay.
The game speeds up really, really quickly.
So
So you can
the
finish the
box-
game in about maybe even 30 to 45 minutes.
The box promises 45 to 60 minutes.
Now that is probably due to the player count. A lot of times I play either the solo game or like 2 or 3 players. And like I said, with the simultaneous gameplay, or with people who have played this before, you can shorten the game time a lot. Maybe your first time might take a little bit closer to an hour.
I did notice the solo. So how is the solo mode?
Solo mode's actually really fun.
Really?
It's very difficult depending on like what challenge level you're looking for.
Okay.
Because based on die rolls, your AI opponent might get a bunch of points every single turn, or they might get nothing every single turn. So you really have to focus on efficiency and a little bit of luck as well.
Great.
So I really like the solo game. It's really easy to just like pull it out and play it while you're like watching TV or something like that.
Cool. Awesome. It doesn't seem like this is a very spiteful game.
No, not at all.
So everyone's kind of making their own engine.
Yeah.
With not a ton of player interaction.
Yeah.
But you're all kind of going at the same time, so there's not a lot of downtime at least.
Right.
Okay.
So the worst that can happen is you can spend a resource to get rid of a whole row on the market, whether that's contractors or blueprint cards. But also you can do that just to get rid of high scoring cards that your opponents will be able to use more easily, things like that. But for the most part, you're playing your own game, you're drawing cards randomly from the top of the deck or grabbing market cards freely. It's really just about making your machine as efficient as possible. You can look at what your opponents are doing and what kinds of machines or factory additions they're making and try to wipe the board or take those cards away before they can get to them. But that's really about it. You get to do a lot of this stuff on your own, which I really appreciate.
Okay. So, what other games? We talked about Terraforming Mars, but this certainly doesn't seem to be anywhere near as complicated as that.
Right.
But what other games would you put in a similar category?
I would put this right alongside maybe like Splendor,
Okay.
or even
I was going to say
Machikoro.
Machikoro,
Yeah.
but okay.
But it's not as close to Machikoro because in Machikoro you're rolling dice. Based on the results, you'll get free things. In this one, you're actually building the engine yourself. So maybe a little bit closer to Terraforming Mars, actually.
So it's a little bit more like it's on that spectrum between the two, but
Right.
it sounds like it's kind of like Machikoro, but a little more deliberate. You don't
Yeah.
automatically get everything. You have to decide to spend the opportunity to get it.
Exactly. I would actually put it a little bit closer to maybe Gizmos, another
Okay.
kind of more obscure but getting a lot of more popularity recently. A game about like using energy to collect gizmos for your little science project.
Great.
Yeah. So I love Fantastic Factories.
Of course you do.
I would recommend that one for probably closer to the older age range, just because the complexity of strategy.
That reminds me, speaking of dice, I found someone to play Dice Must Flow with us. We just need
Dice
to find
Must Flow?
Yeah, remember there was the Dune dice game I was telling you
Yeah.
about?
No,
Yep.
I can't wait.
There's
That sounds awesome.
So I was talking to somebody on Twitter who wants to play it. We need to find just a few more players.
Okay.
And then I think we can get a game together.
I'll start recruiting.
Great. So do you want to do On Tour next?
Yes, absolutely. Let's go
Okay.
for it. I had a lot of fun researching On Tour because I'd never heard of BoardGameTables.com, which is the publisher for this game. They typically do board game tables, but they have a couple of other games like QE, an auctioning game, or Bites, which is just a game
Yeah,
about
they
bugs.
have a really weird collection of games kind of in their stable.
Yeah.
I love the art and graphic design of this game too.
Yeah, I really liked it too. It's about bands going on tour throughout America. So the actual gameplay is creating routes for yourself. What you do is everybody's playing at the same time because it's a roll and write game. You roll dice and then you use these dry erase markers on your really glossy, really shiny, huge board. And then the dice that you're rolling are 10-sided dice, which isn't typical for a roll and write game. Roll and write games typically use those 6-sided dice that we saw from Fantastic Factories. So in this one, you're rolling 2 10-sided dice, and this is because you can use those numbers interchangeably as 2-digit numbers.
Okay.
Right? So if like you roll a 6 and a 3, that could be 36 or it could be 63.
Okay.
In fact, most of the time you're using both to try to fill out your board as much as possible.
Okay.
The goal is to place down those numbers in different areas based on what's available in this game. So you'll pull out these cards which will divide the United States into 3 areas, maybe like the Southwest and like the Northwest or the Northeast and things like that. And then you're going to be
there's 6 regions,
plugging those
maybe?
numbers in. Sometimes
Okay.
it's based on the cards that you pull out.
Color coding has like 6 regions.
Right,
Okay,
so
got
you
it.
can get a variety of
But the cards
games.
can change that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you're plugging in the numbers. Once everybody's finished plugging in numbers all over America, you're then going to finish the game by drawing a route from the east to the west side of America, and you're connecting numbers in ascending order. So you want to put a lot of the high numbered dice rolls on the left side or the west side, and then the low ones on the east, because the more numbers you connect on your tour, well, the more concerts that you can hit for your band, which means more money, which means more points. Whoever gets the most wins the game.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like the components for this one because the board's really glossy and shiny. The markers last a really long time as well.
So you had a chance to play it?
Yeah, actually. It ended up being a pretty simple game. Everybody was able to catch on pretty quickly. I read through the rules in about
pretty
10
accessible.
minutes. Yeah, very accessible. Not to mention, the player account, you can play by yourself, or you can play up to as many people as you have boards. So as long as you get enough boards, or maybe 2 people who own the game get together, you can play with a lot of people.
That's the interesting thing about a lot of roll and writes is that you can, they're theoretically infinitely sized games
Exactly.
almost. So this is also one of the biggest roll and writes that I've seen. To be
yeah.
honest. A lot of the other ones are really, really small. Yeah, we had a train friend. So, roll and write fans.
Right.
Not going to be a lot of spite, if any, here.
Not really.
Because everybody's doing their own route.
Exactly.
But other than roll and write fans, who would you recommend this for?
If you want a simple game, if you want a party game,
Okay.
a lot of people these days have geared towards games that they can just pick up and play more easily, especially in Mox, in my experience, a lot of couples who just want to pick something up and start playing it. Or if you've had a chance to try out any other roll and write games that are on the simpler side, this one ends up just being really easy. If you like,
So it's a good entry point to roll and write.
yeah.
Okay.
If you like Roll America or Roll for America, it's a lot like that, but with a little bit more going on because of the different regions and because of the way that you can place the numbers down.
Great.
I really highly recommend this one. Definitely any age range as well.
Okay. All right. What do you want to do next, or do we have a poll for doing next? Oh, we have Sabotage. It looks like.
All right. Sabotage.
You gonna sing the song for me?
I don't know the song. What song are you talking about?
No, that didn't happen. Don't worry. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. Everybody be cool.
Everybody's laughing
Everybody
at me.
be
I'm
cool.
sorry, I don't know it. I didn't know this was based on a song.
It's not.
Okay, good.
But don't worry about it. There's a song.
Nothing came up when I was researching the game.
It's cool. Don't worry about it. We'll shepherd you through this dangerous time. We'll protect you from the wrath of the internet.
Oh, God.
So
all
Sabotage,
right.
tell me about this game.
Another roll and write game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there any hidden roll or betrayal games this week, Javion?
Yeah, kinda. Hidden
Kinda,
roll.
kinda.
Not, well, it's not really a hidden roll. You know who the
a
know
dice
who the role
game,
is.
2 roll and writes.
Do we have any hidden rolls? No, I don't think we have any hidden rolls. Well, I mean, there's deception and intrigue.
You better give me some good deception.
Okay, okay.
All right,
So
so
Sabotage. You may have noticed how big this game is.
It's big.
It's a Tim Fowers game.
So I like how you just let me say this is the biggest roll and write I've seen, when a larger roll and write was literally sitting next to me the whole time.
Surprise.
Cool. The real betrayal game was the friends I made along the way.
Well, it's a good thing we're talking about Sabotage.
Great. So,
So,
Tim Fowers also,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised based on the art style and graphic design. He does some really, really nice looking games. I'm a big fan of Burgle Bros and Fugitive.
yes.
So what's this?
This is a roll and write game about spies and supervillains.
Okay.
Spies are actually the good guys in this game.
Okay.
It's played for
As
2
opposed to
or
those
4
super
players.
villains that might be good guys.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So like spies, sometimes you think of them as like, oh, I'm spying on the other team,
Sure,
or like you're
sure.
doing something sinister. But in this case, you're a good spy. At least working for a good government. I don't know. It's not exactly explained.
Is set in a time period before moral ambiguity.
Right. Exactly. I guess at least for the supervillains, anyway. What you're trying to do is you're trying to stop the supervillains from world domination, or at least from knocking off all of the spies. What you're doing is you're rolling dice, and then based on those dice results, you're going to tell everybody, okay, these are the dice results I got.
Okay.
And everybody's going to set their dice to the same results that you got on your turn.
Okay.
So that will rotate. Sometimes, like it'll be me, and then going clockwise around the table, other people will get to roll their dice,
Sure.
and everybody will set their dice to that result. This is important because based on the dice results, you'll be able to take certain actions. And you'll be able to ask people like, okay, how do you move? Oh, I move on any die roll 1 to 4. Okay, cool. I didn't roll any 1s or 4s or any 2s or 3s either, so I know that you're going to be attacking.
Okay.
So this is a hidden movement game. The size of this box is important because after you take all the components out, the box itself is a screen for the spies to conceal their movement.
Okay.
So you've got your whiteboard behind the screen, and you've got your dice behind the screen, and all these tiles that you're placing as actions. Then you'll place the dice on top of those tiles, and you'll do things like move around, or hack a domination device, or a satellite, or something like that, to stop the supervillains from getting extra actions every turn, or to disable their weaponry so they can't attack you as easily, and things like that.
Cool. As
time goes on, the supervillains get more powerful, but of course the spies get closer and closer to stop or thwarting their evil plans. So a lot of this game is anticipating what your opponent's doing, and trying to figure out where they are.
Trying to predict from what dice rolls are they end up getting.
Exactly. Every time the spies move, the supervillains get a hint about where they are.
Sure.
You can tell them the column or the row or the section that you're in, which will sound a lot familiar to anybody who's played Captain Sonar.
Which I was going to say I dearly love.
It's a very, very good game.
So, and this says 2 or 4 players, not 2 to
Right.
4. So it sounds like it's team-based, basically.
Exactly.
You're going to end up with 1 spy or 1 supervillain, or 2
Well,
spies, 2 supervillains.
Yeah. It's always 2 spies, 2 supervillains. And if you're playing a 2-player game, you'll take on the role of both the spies if you're the spy team, or both of the supervillains if you're on the supervillain team.
Huh, interesting.
So you get to take on a little bit more
So
responsibility.
then, so if you're both the spies,
Right.
do the supervillains just run by an AI, basically?
Well, not exactly. It's not 2 people playing the spies, it's 1 person playing 2 spies.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah. So
1 person plays 2 spies, the opponent
Got
is
it.
playing both
Okay.
of the supervillains.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have seen a single-player version of this as well. If you download an app, that app will simulate the supervillains who are hunting you down.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can literally be hunted down by robots.
Sweet.
It's really fun. I think this one is a really cool game. It's got a little bit of complexity to it, but compared to all of the other Tim Powers games, I would say this is actually on the lighter side.
Yeah, Burgle Bros was not light.
No, not at all. Neither was Fugitive. If you think about like how much complexity
Fugitive
there
was
is.
great.
Yeah.
I really just wish that the back of the box had an image of it in play,
Right.
because it's really intriguing to think about that.
Yeah.
But I adore Captain Sonar. And if anybody's not familiar with Captain Sonar, it's basically real-time team-based battleship, which is just amazing.
Yeah.
And this seems like it's maybe a little more tactical
Yeah,
take on that a little
definitely.
bit? And only one side is hidden information.
Yeah, in Captain Sonar, you have different people playing different roles, and you can sort of hard focus on what you're doing and do it really, really well. In Sabotage, you have to take on a lot of responsibility for the strategy and for the tactics. You can only play up to 4 players, so there's only so much burden other people can take on for you. And another reason for the design of this box is because when you're opening it up, that back of that box is sort of a reference for other players to remember what sectors they are, what they're named, and sort of visualize that kind of thing. So they really utilize the box in this.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space.
Oh yeah, that one's another good one. Same thing, kind of like dry erase markers, hidden movement.
So we have a couple other games that we mentioned that are like this. I'm intrigued to see what the dice and roll and write element of this is, but are there any other games that we haven't talked about that you think would be like this?
Well, I think actually Escape from the Aliens was my biggest comparison. That one and Captain Sonar, what I came prepared with anyway. This game has a lot of elements of deduction in it. So if you really like mystery games or like mystery solving, that kind of thing, or if you like sort of anticipation or preparation kinds of games where you're trying to get in your opponent's head and anticipate what they're going to do next, I really like that one as well.
And it doesn't seem like this would be particularly spiteful.
Right.
Because it doesn't sound like there's a lot of ways to just screw over your opponent. You're just trying to deduce what they're doing. Is that correct?
Kind of. The spies have a lot of liberty in terms of thwarting the supervillains' plans, and the supervillains can do kind of the same thing. The supervillains can sort of destroy certain areas of the board to make it easier for them to move around and harder for the spies to move around unnoticed. And then, of course, the spies can just start disabling and dismantling the things that the supervillains are doing. So a lot of it is just head-to-head kind of gameplay.
So there is a fair amount of, well, I mean, other than deducing where the spies are, there is a lot of player interaction during the course of the game.
Right. If we were going to rate it out of 5, I would say it's probably 3 on the spectrum of spite. Yeah. Super good game.
I'm excited about this. My complaints about you not bringing me a hidden information deception game are retracted.
Okay, good. That makes me very happy, Derek.
The way that you say that suggests that that's not the case.
No, I just sound very sarcastic sometimes. I'm being sincere.
Yeah, I just sound very sarcastic sometimes. Yeah, I hear it.
What game are we going to choose next? I think Dungeonology would be a great one.
Well, so I have a question. Because the graphic design, no, I think it's a completely different company. There was another small deck dungeon game that had a logo that was very similar to that I thought. I thought this might be related to it, but maybe it's not. Anyway, with a segue that is unrelated to this game.
Of course.
What is Dungeonology?
Dungeonology is sort of an alternative dungeon crawl game.
Okay.
It's completely competitive. It is a game about an adventuring academy who tragically just lost their dean. So, professors of the Adventuring Academy are going to go out, enlist some students and interns, and try to write a thesis about, well, exploration in the world of fantasy. So you're looking for different fantastical creatures, and you're trying to gain as much information about them as possible without putting any of your students or yourself at risk, because you can be eliminated from this game if you're not careful. There are some push your luck elements to it in terms of getting new students to help you and moving around the board. As you move around, tiles will be collected and tokens will be collected and research will be collected as you're studying, as well as you're going to be getting like panic cards and infamous students, some of the more
troublemakers,
hooligans, I suppose. who are going to make things more difficult because they're going to go over to those creatures and going to start messing with them or putting themselves in danger.
You're not normally going to the dungeon and clearing it out and killing the monsters.
Right.
You're observing them in their natural habitat.
Exactly. Maybe you'll toss a distraction their way, or maybe you'll stun them every once in a while to keep them off your tail, or to keep them from chasing you down.
Sure.
And a lot of this has a lot of take that mechanics. A lot of people who reviewed this game said a lot of it ends up being a lot of people negotiating or talking to each other about how they're going to hamper your opponent's plans to study
what I'm hearing
these
is
beasts.
Maximum spite.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of it is playing cards and completing certain actions or sacrificing certain things in order to keep your opponent from being able to study this turn. And there's a lot of catch-up mechanics too, because as you gain resources, as you learn things about these creatures, you'll gain stars. And stars just allow your opponents to gain extra things for free just to catch up in case they're a little bit behind.
Sure.
But those stars will also signal the end of the game if you get enough research, which is actually a really difficult thing to do in this.
I think this was on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Because I remember looking at it back then. So people might want to look at Kickstarter for kind of more insight into the original intent before it came out. But it looks like chat is kind of going through pictures online and whatnot, and they're lamenting the fact that we can't open it up and look at it, because apparently the minis, I guess the minis look really cool and will be really cool to paint.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it looks
they're
like
a little bit smaller too.
Okay.
So you can get a lot of them done pretty quickly. Yeah, but really high quality stuff.
So it looks like there's a lot of little miniatures. There's some cubes. There's a lot of cards, player boards, stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a ton of components in it. It's a very long play time. And it ends up being a very in-depth game, so pretty complex. Game time, I would put it anywhere between like an hour to 2 hours, depending on whether or not you played it before, or if you're playing like a shortened version of the game.
Sure. I find it funny that 2 hours is a long play time, because I'm used to RPGs where it's like, yep, we did a marathon session of 6-8 hours. Like, cool.
Well, not everybody's as sophisticated as you about your board gaming.
I'll show you. So yeah, like it's kind of an interesting take on dungeons.
Yeah, exactly. It's a
giving it
little bit more
different spin.
lighthearted.
Yeah, like it's definitely
More
cute, the
cartoonish.
idea of having to go explore that.
Yeah, you're exploring and investigating and researching, but you're not like clearing out waves and hordes of minions and monsters to save the town or whatever. You just want fame and infamy. So you're going to do that while putting your students in as little risk as possible.
Okay, great. So high spite.
Yes.
What other games do you think it would be similar to gameplay-wise, though? Because like
I think
theme-wise, there's a lot of dungeon crawling adventure
Right.
games, but I don't think mechanically it's anything like those.
Yeah, I think this is a departure from the norm when it comes to its theme. But if you like that fantasy gameplay, I would check out like Talisman and things like that.
Okay.
Or if you like really, high level, high concept games with a lot of depth and strategy, you'll like this game a lot too.
Have you had a chance to play this?
No, I haven't.
Okay, because I was going to ask if you think of any games that mechanically are similar to it, because there's nothing that I can think of offhand.
Well, you're sort of building a tableau. You've got your character and your research that you're collecting. And there's a lot of danger as well. So it has a lot of similarity to some co-op games where you're exploring and you're finding more about the world. But in this one, it's completely, strictly competitive.
Okay. Like we all know academia really is.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So I believe we had another poll, and Sherlock was the game that chat wanted to go through next.
Great. I'm happy to talk about the Sherlock Files. This is the elementary entries. So I had a chance to try out the demo version of this game, which is really just a small deck of cards. The reason being, this game is played entirely with cards. It's a cooperative game of deduction, as you probably guessed from the title. Anything with Sherlock in it is going to have you trying to solve some sort of mystery.
The chat wants to confirm no dice in here,
No dice.
but you're happy to talk about it.
Happy to talk about it. I thought it was a really fun game, even without dice.
Wow.
When you think about it, cards are kind of a sort of
No, they're not.
42, 50-sided dice.
Nope.
As long as you just take off certain sides, whatever.
So Sherlock.
What you're doing is you're solving a mystery in each case or each file.
Sure.
The first
so
file.
Is this one file in this box?
No, it's 3.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first file is just about an airplane catastrophe. Somebody's died on a plane, and you're trying to sift through the clues and figure out what happened. The second one is about archaeologists and archivists who found a dead body, but it was one of their own. So you're trying to figure out what happened there as well.
Sure.
And then the last one, there's a July 4th party where people are just having fun, celebrating, America. Except somebody's dead. So you have to figure out what happened in the party.
Okay.
So a lot of different themes, and you can play them in any order you want to. You don't have to play them in order.
Okay. They don't build them on top of each other?
Nope.
Okay.
You just get more experience after having played through each of them.
Okay.
So like I said, each file is just played entirely with one deck of cards.
So is it a co-op game then?
It is.
Okay.
Everybody's working together to solve the mystery, although you might not think it based on the gameplay. So each deck of cards starts with like your starting card. You read it aloud, everybody knows what's going on. Then you put that one aside and you deal out the cards without shuffling them. So everybody gets a certain amount of the cards.
Okay.
Usually around 4, depending on how many players there are. It
I
may be
imagine
different.
the number of players really matters.
Exactly. And you can play this solo. So when I was playing the demo version, I put out the deck of cards and I had cards in my hand. And the whole gameplay is deciding whether or not cards in your hand are important or not. You can talk to other players about what cards you have, but in a limited fashion. You can only talk about the title of each card. You can't talk about any of the information presented on that card.
Okay.
So there's restricted communication.
Interesting.
While you've got cards in your hand and other people have got cards in their hand, you're sort of taking a risk at the start about which cards you think are going to be important later on.
Can you end up getting rid of a card that you need to win?
Yep. And unfortunately, you can't talk about any cards that you discard as well. So you really got to make it count and try to put the pieces together and try not to give away anything that is pretty vital.
Okay.
So a lot of the strategy of the game is playing more cards than you discard.
Okay.
Because there's less of a penalty for you playing a card that actually didn't matter than there is for discarding a card that would have been vital to understanding the mystery. So I'll take my turn by playing a card or discarding a card, and then I'll draw a card. And then the next person goes, and then the next person, and that's the whole game until all the cards are gone. Either discarded or played onto the table.
Okay.
Then once you've got all the pieces of the puzzle, and you have as many clues as you've played, you start talking about the clues that are out there and the clues that you've discarded. Now you can talk about the clues that you've discarded, but you can't just like sift through them and look at them. So you're trying to figure out who did it, right? You're trying to figure out the whole mystery.
Yep.
Why did the brother who was in prison make it out, or who broke him out? What was so important about that party that everybody went to? And who wasn't invited. All of these different things that seemingly don't really matter until you get to the crux, which is who the murderer was, what the murder weapon used was, and who had motive to do so.
So each of these case files has a specific answer.
Exactly.
And a specific set of clues. So once you've played one, you're not going to be able to replay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I kind of like that style
But it doesn't
of game.
sound like you're going to destroy anything.
No.
So once you play through it, you can just pack it back up and hand it to somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah, you could pass it around to
Chat
people
was
who
curious
haven't played it
about
before. It is a one-off kind of game. Once you play through each mystery, you understand the mystery. You know what happened.
But it sounds like it's more deductive mystery than escape room in a box kind of thing.
Exactly. It's more deductive mystery. It kind of feels like a escape room in a box almost, just because that you're in an escape room in a box, typically you're solving riddles or puzzles and things like that. And this can be its own kind of puzzle.
Chat was also saying that apparently some of the cards have QR codes and stuff on it. Did you see that in your demo?
I did not see that, no. Maybe those are hints online or something like that.
Sure.
Some of the unlock or exit games had those QR codes to help people figure out the mysteries if they're having a lot of trouble.
So an important question. How long until the Cthulhu version of this comes out?
Oh man, I don't know. How much mystery is there in Lovecraft? Is there a lot? I try to stay as far away from Lovecraft.
We're going to
stuff as I
protect
can.
you from that one too.
I don't like horror. I get scared real easy.
We're definitely going to have to protect you from
All
the
right.
internet there too. Wow, so we have to show you Sabotage and explain how Lovecraft works.
Is it a movie or is it like a song or?
It's a song.
Okay.
It's a song, the video for which is the opening for a TV show that never existed.
Okay.
We'll get there, don't worry.
Wow, that sounds very convoluted.
So, co-op,
Yes.
low spite.
No spite whatsoever.
But similar to the unlock escape games, because you're puzzling through limited information.
And once you play it, you're pretty much done. Suspending your disbelief so that other people can play it, you're probably just gonna have to remove yourself from the game entirely and just watch from a distance.
Well, so do you remember Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective?
Yes, it's a
is
lot
it like that?
It's a lot.
But
In that one, the
card-based.
theme is a little bit more concise. You know, it fits a little bit better. This one, you're really just, oh, Sherlock already did this, so we're gonna try it too and see if we can get the same score as Sherlock, which is the same plot on Consulting Detective, except in Consulting Detective, you play as homeless people that he is commissioned to try to solve the mystery at the same time as Sherlock, who always finishes the mystery first and is always perfect at it.
It also does occur to me that Sherlock Holmes was not around during planes.
Yeah, exactly. So
So
don't know.
zombie Sherlock Holmes.
I think it's like a modern Sherlock Holmes looking at
sure.
cold cases and modern cases as well.
Great. So what do you want to do next?
All right. So we've got Ankh'or over there.
Yeah, so we have Encore, Dragon Keepers, Gloom of Thrones, and Moneybags.
I like Ankh'or. Let's talk about that one.
Okay.
Ankh'or, from the same people who brought you Splendor and Jaipur.
So I thought this was the Southeast Asian city, but I think it's Ankh'or.
Encore? Oh, okay.
It's an Ankh because it's Egyptian.
Oh, it's pronounced Ankh. Okay, cool.
I mean, that's
Thank you for correcting me.
Well, I'm not going to say it's
No,
correct.
no, you're right. You're totally right.
I'm not going to say it's correct. I'm just
you're
saying that
absolutely
all
right.
of the vampire players said Ankh, so, I mean, we could totally be wrong.
You're the expert, right? Encore is a game very similar to Jaipur.
Okay.
In this
very
game,
popular.
yes, very popular. I love Jaipur. In this game, you are collecting colored resources and then spending them to gain tokens.
Okay.
These little poker chip style tiles that you're placing into your little tableau.
Okay.
And in your tableau, you're trying to get lots of matching animals and matching colors.
Okay.
The more of that you do, the more bonuses you gain, and the more points you'll get.
Okay.
So everybody
it's
already.
like a tableau building set collection thing?
Yes,
Okay.
it's a lot of set collection. A lot like Jaipur. So everybody knows that if you've got one animal, you want to get more of that animal. So there's a lot of spite in terms of either wiping the board or taking away
sniping
animals.
those animals,
Yeah,
sure.
sniping them or just moving them
Poaching, I mean, I guess.
through so that maybe the resources I was collecting, the very specific number and color of resources that I was collecting to gain this resource on my next turn. Maybe you just spend one resource that you didn't need this turn to move all of those tiles over. So now I got to get a completely different colored resource, or maybe the same tile that I wanted comes out or better. You know, it's sort of like a gamble in that aspect. But the gameplay is really straightforward. Collect tokens, spend them to get the things you want. Try to get the most points. It's very easy to teach. I haven't played it myself, but from my research, I picked up on it pretty quickly. And if you like Jaipur,
Well, so
also
it's
really, really
very
simple
similar to
pick up on.
Jaipur.
Yeah.
But if I have Jaipur, is this easier, harder? Is it just a different theme?
It's a different theme. It's got different components. In Jaipur, the tokens are just markers for how many points you have. In this one, the tokens are actually the gameplay and the markers for how many points that you have.
So it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
A little bit modified. Okay.
Yeah. If you want kind of a different feel, but you really like Jaipur, I would definitely pick up
Any other
Encore.
games that you would compare it to?
It's a little bit like Splendor in that you're trying to collect certain colored tiles to gain
Is there any
the
engine
exact
building
ones.
element?
There is a little bit of an engine building. You're not really getting more resources based on the tiles that you take. So it's purely take the resources, spend the resources.
Okay.
And you can't gain any extra ones, but there's also a limited pool of resources. So it's a lot like Splendor in that way as well.
Great.
Yeah. So it's a very small game, really easy to teach. And this is a
limited
special edition.
with a metal coin.
Yeah. So and there's a version of Jaipur that also comes with a metal coin. So if you're trying to collect those, definitely look at this one
Is
too.
it from the same people who did Jaipur?
Exactly, yeah, and Splendor.
Okay.
So very good game. It's very small, compact, easy to take with you on a trip or something like that.
Okay. Well, the last poll chat picked Dragon Keepers next.
All right.
So, tell us about this weird picture.
Have you
Is
ever
this
seen
like a weird Jabberwocky thing?
That's a dragon. They're all dragons.
Looks very, very Jabber. Yeah, okay. Yep. So if you ever thought dragons needed to be more Jabberwocky-esque, game for you.
Yeah, definitely. Have you ever seen How to Train Your Dragon?
No.
There is a series of movies based on a book series called How to Train Your Dragon. And in it, basically, well, I mean, you can guess from the title. It's about training
He
dragons.
trains a dragon.
Yeah.
I think he probably also learns the value of himself,
And friendship.
loyalty,
There you go.
companionship, being
Yeah.
true to yourself, living up to your dreams,
Yeah, and respect for
communication, all that
nature.
kind of stuff.
And
I've seen the trailer.
life.
I hear it's
in
very
any
funny.
form. I loved it. It was super cute. And so is this game. In Dragon Keepers, you play as a dragon trainer, a dragon keeper, a dragon guardian. And your opponents can either be other players or dragon hunters.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you're playing the simple competitive game, you're just trying to train dragons before other people get a chance to. Or at least put shields on them. If you can put shields on 3 dragons before other people do, you win the game. So it's sort of like a race. And it's a very, very quick game too, because you're basically just playing cards, gaining resources, gaining more cards, and then playing them on the dragons in different ways in order to gain their special abilities and stuff.
Okay.
To get the shields on them. In the more complex, strategized, cooperative game, strategized, sorry. Cooperative game, you are not only trying to train the dragons, but you're also trying to defend them and heal them so that the hunters can't take them out. It's based on, the hunters attack based on dice rolls, and the dragons also defend themselves based on dice rolls. So you can get a training token, flip your dragon over, and then tell that dragon to, well, teach that dragon to use its special powers to attack the hunters back. And in doing so, you'll win the game based on what difficulty you want to get to.
Okay. So my wife likes co-op games and fat, ugly things. So do you think that this game would be good?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I like the dragons. I think they're pretty cute, but I mean, you could kind of see that there's a variety of them, and the unique art style is open to interpretation.
Which you totally are not going to see
Art's
on camera.
subjective. Yeah.
But so, like, is it like how tight is the co-op element?
Well, everybody's working together, so you can hold off on using your resources so that somebody else can train a dragon first, or you can trade in some of your resources for other ones if you think something else is going to be more useful.
Okay.
The dice rolls will really determine which dragons are going to be attacked, and so maybe
how well they defend.
Yeah, exactly. And so maybe you wanted to train a dragon this turn, but one of your dragons is dying, so you have to go over there and help him out before he gets taken out by the hunter, and you lose the game.
So, are there any other games that you would say are similar to this?
Well, it's kind of tricky because it's developed or published by, what is this, Night World, and they are sort of a lesser-known publisher. They've made a game you probably haven't heard of called Hand in the Sea, which is a 2-player card game about Roman war, which is completely different than this game altogether. So I feel like they're branching out into a different kind of territory.
Sure.
However, I did show you guys a game last time I came by. I'm struggling to remember the name of it, but basically it's 6 Second Showdown, I think.
Okay.
Where basically you are a arena gladiator trying to fight off different opponents, traitors to the crown because you're a princess, and you're trying.
Princess Gladiator. Sure.
Yeah, and you're trying to roll dice to gain the right dice allocation, so you can place them on the different villains, I suppose, and stop them from attacking you. So it's a little bit like that one as well.
Okay.
It's also a very small-ish kind of game. So not a whole lot of similarities to it. It's kind of one of those third-party games that you pick up on a whim and you end up really liking it if you like dragons.
Well, so we talked about the co-op mode a little bit. The competitive mode.
Yeah.
How much player interaction is there, and is it particularly spiteful?
Not particularly.
Is it very cutthroat, or?
Some of the cards you can use to manipulate your opponents or stop them from getting their goals.
But it sounds like it's mainly you're just trying to race to complete a dragon before somebody else does.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's really more of like a race. You're trying to use the cards wisely and efficiently, playing them down to gain resources and placing those resources on the dragons, or using the dragon special abilities to attack other dragons or other opponents to keep them from getting enough resources to finish out the game. Yeah, so there's a little bit of collusion that you can get into.
So is it mainly resource collection and allocation, or is there like an engine building kind of component to it?
There's not a whole lot of building of anything.
So you're basically
really.
just playing the cards
Yeah.
to do an effect, usually to get resources to take an action.
Or train your dragon to use its special abilities and special powers. And each one is really different. There's like an earthquake roar and like fireballs and electricity and stuff like that.
Well, I definitely recommend that people look at it for the art. I kind of wish that the box had more art on it. It's got the cover that's pretty striking. But it
and it
seems
shows
like
you what the scene looks like when you set it up as well.
it seems like there's a very different art style for each different dragon.
Exactly.
So I have a feeling that a lot of the appeal of this game is going to be how much that art resonates with you.
Yeah, exactly. It's really the kind of thing that if dragons really speak to you, or if you want something really simple that you can show to like kids, or even the solo game, really. You know, it's got its foot in a lot of different.
I hear dragons are popular.
Yeah, I like dragons, almost as much as I like dogs. This one's called Moneybags. So, in this game, it's another Oink game. I don't know if you recognize Oink games, but they have made a lot of really small games that are really big hits.
I think I played this at PAX.
Oh, cool. Okay. So you can help me out with explaining it to
It
everybody.
was a while ago.
Okay. Well, never mind then. Moneybags is one of the newest in the line of Oink games. And Oink games typically makes games that are really small, around like this wide and still like this tall. So I think the last couple of games that they've done have been around this size, like 9 tiles.
Sure.
And if you actually pick it up and you hold it, it's a little bit heavy because inside aren't just regular like cardboard tokens or anything. It's metal coins and burlap bags. Yeah. So it's really thematic. What you're doing is you are a bunch of thugs who have just stolen from criminals a bunch of money. Now you went to your secret hiding place or your hideout, and you're divvying up the money. However, you're all thugs and criminals yourselves, stealing from other criminals.
This is the kind of game I like.
Yeah. So you're not exactly going to want to give up your money to other
it's
people.
not a fair share kind of thing.
No, there can only be one winner. Whoever has the most money at the end. But there's a catch. One person is a boss, and they get to start off with all the coins, and they divvy out the coins to each player as they see fit. You need at least 3 people to play this game. And that's because everybody else is going to get a chance to say, I think you did a bad job of dealing out money to us. Or they'll say, I think you have more money than I do.
But I think I remember you put the money, so the one player divides all the money up into the burlap sacks.
Without showing anybody how much money they
and
put
hands the sacks out.
Exactly.
And then each of the players can request to take somebody else's bag and feel it.
Exactly. You can't like feel it.
Yeah, but
you can shake
you can
it
hold it and shake it.
and weigh it, sort of.
And then you compare it to yours, and then you kind of be like, I think you've got more.
Yeah.
And then you can either take some, I think, or challenge them directly.
Exactly. So taking from them is as easy as taking as many as you want secretly out and putting it secretly into your bag, and then giving them back their bag. And after that, it sort of changes the state of the game. Who has more coins now?
But you're still not able to actually count coins, right?
Exactly. No counting, but you can reach in their bag and grab something. However, instead of that, you can challenge somebody and say, I think you have more coins than I do. So then you both pull out your bags, you stack up your coins, whoever has the tallest stack loses all of their coins to the player who has less coins in their bag. So then that player who lost all their coins, eliminated from the game.
Yep.
And you're slowly going to keep doing this, eliminating people from the game until 2 rounds have been gone. You've gone through 2 rounds, or until there's one person standing. After those 2 rounds, whoever has the most gold in their pouch wins. So there's a lot of like, I'll challenge you, but if I do this, I might get a ton of coins, and then you can then somebody else can challenge me.
A lot of this is coming back to because we played a couple games of it, and it's one of those things that's very, very simple, but ends up being surprisingly tense.
Exactly.
Because you kind of don't want to challenge.
Yeah.
You kind of want to just grab a couple coins from somebody else.
Right.
So that you have more, but they also don't want to challenge you.
Right.
It's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah, you have to be careful about how many coins you get into your bag, because you want a ton so you can win the game, but you don't want too many because you want to stay in the game.
And since it only goes around 2 rounds, you only have 2 chances to either challenge or take coins.
Exactly.
So you have to make sure that you deploy those to get enough coins to win, but not so clearly be in front that everyone will take you down.
Exactly. Sometimes you want to challenge people towards the end of the game because that can eliminate them, and it has less opportunity for your opponents to challenge you.
Yep.
But if you challenge somebody and eliminate from the game, that can cause a chain where the next person challenges you, and then the next person challenges them, and then there's one person left.
So it's also a game I think that you're supposed to play in multiple rounds. Like you don't just play 2 rounds. You play a game, and then play another game to kind of even things out.
There's 2 ways to play it. You can just do 2 rounds, whoever's the most wins. Or every round, you can give out points to whoever has the most coins by the end of the round. First place gets 3, second place 2, first place 1 and 0 for anybody else. And you can play up to 6 players too.
So if anybody wants like a super simple social deduction game that maybe doesn't have quite the same like direct head-to-headness.
Exactly. Or if you like the Oink games and you want to try one of the newest games in their line.
Yep.
Or if you really liked like what are you holding games like Skull or Sheriff of Nottingham. This one has so many of the same mechanics and feels so much like those games. I think you're definitely going to like it. Plus the components are just so much fun to play with. And you can just repurpose
Who
those
doesn't want
coins
burlap sacks?
or metal coins that you can use for your other games.
So I think, are we down to just Gloom of Thrones?
That's the only one left.
All right.
Here we go. So Gloom of Thrones. Have you ever played Gloom?
Yes.
Gloom is a game about misery.
Yep.
You
I
start
like that.
you start the setup of the game by choosing the first player by describing your day as miserably as possible, and whoever had the worst day gets to go first. You get a family who you're trying to kill, or at least give the worst ending possible.
You're trying to make them miserable and then kill them.
Exactly. You're going to try to give them the worst ending possible, and you're going to do this by taking 2 actions every turn to play cards onto your families.
Yep.
And these cards are semi-translucent in that they have little tokens on them and things, but they always show what's underneath them in some capacity, right? So what you're trying to do is...
I think there's the card games I remember, like there's this one where you're layering cards on top.
Right.
I think there's Mystic Veil that does that.
Yeah, where you're sliding cards into sleeves to create new cards.
There's the old game Hecatomb way back in the day.
I haven't heard that one.
Hecatomb was weird. It had the plastic cards, but they were pentagons.
Okay.
And you were to like build this pentagon weird monster thing. It was one of those games that like WotC came out where you're like, you're a horrible necromancer making horrible monsters and releasing them in the public, and you're
man.
that seems real weird for you. Okay.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I would definitely try that.
You should. I have a feeling that you would be amused by the weirdo components.
Yeah, I like making amalgamations of things. That's cool. Gloom has a lot of those kind of same feelings to it, where you're trying to change your families, the people in your
You're
families.
inflicting miseries on them to make them unhappy.
Exactly. The more miserable, the more points you'll get. And it's usually in like integers of 5, or intervals of 5, excuse me. It's like 5, 10, or 15 points at a time, right? So the more points on them, the closer you are to winning. And when the game's over, whoever has the most miserable family, aka the most negative points, wins. And there's a lot of spite that you can get into this game because there's a lot of cards that you can play onto your opponents. In fact, almost any card you can play onto your opponents
To make them happier.
to make them, to cheer up their family a little bit, give them a nicer ending.
Or you can kill them quicker
Exactly.
to prevent them from being more miserable.
Yeah, I think you're gonna get a lot of points off of that card, so I'm just going to help you out and put their untimely death card on top of them right away.
So normal Gloom is very like Victorian themed, Edward Gorey, actually, or Crumbs, whatever kind of thing. But Gloom of Thrones is more direct comedy parody. It feels like.
Yes, absolutely. It's directly taken from the books and the show, so everything is more.
The show that
medieval.
shall not be named.
I mean, I feel differently than a lot of people did about the ending of Gloom of Thrones.
I still haven't seen it.
Game of Thrones, but it still was a really, really awesome show for tons of seasons. So I still think people are really into.
Oh yeah, I
the
still
books
haven't.
Anyway.
I'm way behind. But like the back doesn't have the puns that are real heavy,
Right.
because this was briefly on Kickstarter, I think, or pre-order, and they went very heavy into the pun parody humor element.
Yeah, I didn't actually take a close look at what the cards actually say for themselves, but I got a glimpse at some of the themes, and your family is a lot of like Lannisters and other names of houses and people that I'm not going to just list through at the moment. But you're basically just trying to give them really bad endings, just like they did in a lot of the books, because as we all know, in Game of Thrones, there's a lot of tragic endings for
Yep.
a lot of beloved
Yep.
characters. So yeah, the big difference between this game and regular Gloom, besides the theming, is that you also get the Porcelain Throne, which is sort of like a parody of the Iron Throne.
Sure.
The Porcelain Throne allows you to take the action of putting down an untimely death, which locks in a family member forever and their score. It lets you place that as your second action, because every turn you get 2 actions.
Sure.
The first one has to be placing down an untimely death card, unless you're not going to place down an untimely death card. You can't play as your second action, unless you have the Porcelain Throne under your control, which you can gain by just taking it as one of your actions, or 2 of your actions, or something like that. But that means you can do something and then toss an untimely death card on top of your family member. Or you can do 2 untimely deaths and finish out the game faster than other people were ready for, ending the game before other people have a chance to boost up their numbers really fast.
Cool. So, fans of Gloom,
Yep.
fans of somewhat spiteful, like this isn't Munchkin level spite,
Right.
but it's definitely like screw you over kind
Yes.
of game.
And if you like Game of Thrones, it's a fun stocking stuffer
People
kind of
who
game
want
for
kind of like
Christmas.
parody comedy games.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think those are probably the best markets.
I think so too, yeah. It's also a very simple game. So people with a younger audience, and you don't mind all the themes about, death and misery,
They gotta learn sometime.
then yeah, I would definitely pick out Gloom of Thrones. I don't think you can add it to other editions of Gloom, so it's really just a standalone kind of thing.
Because there's normal Gloom, Cthulhu Gloom, Fairy Tale Gloom, I
Yep,
think.
Unquiet Death, a whole ton of expansions just for the base game of Gloom. So yeah, definitely pick up Gloom of Thrones if you just want that game by itself
So,
to add to your collection.
I think that's everything.
All right.
We managed to get through it all.
Whew.
Anything else that you want to say about yourself, about Mox, about any of these games, about your love of dice, about the superiority of cats?
Yeah, Mox Boarding House is going to be closed on Christmas Day, but open day after and Christmas Eve. So if you want to come by and check out some of the stuff that we're going to be showcasing, all throughout the month, we've got a bunch of Pioneer tournaments. If you like Magic the Gathering on Thursdays, which is a new
Pioneer.
installment.
I keep thinking it was Pathfinder Edition.
No.
Like Pioneer Edition. I keep messing that up.
Nope. Pioneer, the newest format for Magic the Gathering tournament. And also on Saturdays, we're teaching new board games, which is one of my favorite things to do. If you come by next week, I'll teach you how to play X-Wing. If you come by the week after, we'll teach you how to play Keyforge. Just check our event calendar. And I don't know if I'm going to see you by Christmas, but Merry Christmas, Derek, if I don't see you by then.
Happy holidays to you, too. You guys are still on holiday hours? Do you have special hours still?
Yeah, we open an hour earlier every day of the week. So typically we're open at 10 o'clock every day, except for weekends when we're open at 9.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us again. It was nice to see you again.
I had a lot of fun talking
Hopefully
about my
we'll see
favorite
you
dice
more.
games.
We'll always have more games to talk about.
Awesome.
Thank you to everybody for joining us. Thank you to our production team. Thank you to everybody in chat for voting on what games we should cover in what order. Don't forget that on Monday nights we have the Brothers Murph, 5 p.m. Pacific. On Wednesdays at noon Pacific, we have Fireside with Peter Atkinson. He talks with different people in the gaming industry about stories of how the industry's developed. He's still going through Magic folks, so he's still talking about the early days of Wizards of the Coast. And then on Fridays at 11 a.m. we have Table Takes, where we usually argue about something very heatedly. And then we take a break and reset for Table Takes around 12:30ish. So thank you all for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you at a future show. Happy holidays.